Every time you go to the bathroom, your body gives you a message. The problem is, most people flush that message away without ever looking at it. Your stool can often change before you ever feel sick, before your labs come back abnormal, and sometimes before you notice any other obvious warning sign at all. Hello, health champions. Dr. Michael here. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 signs your poop may be trying to warn you about a health problem, which changes you really need to pay attention to, which ones are usually harmless, and how to tell the difference. Now I know this is not exactly dinner table conversation, but it is one of the easiest ways to learn what is happening inside your digestive system. Your gut is constantly processing food, breaking it down, absorbing nutrients, sorting out waste, recycling fluids, and moving the leftovers out of the body. And every step in that process can leave clues behind. If digestion is off, if absorption is off, if bile flow is off, if inflammation is building, or if something is bleeding somewhere along the way, your stool can reflect that. So when you look at your stool, there are 4 major things you're paying attention to. Number 1 is color. Number 2 is consistency. Number 3 is what's in it or on it. And number 4 is frequency and regularity. You can think of it as a free built-in report card from your digestive system if you know how to read it. Before we get into the 10 signs, let me define one word I'm going to use over and over in this video, and that word is persistent. If I say a change is persistent, I mean it lasts more than a few days, it keeps coming back over a period of days to a couple of weeks, or it comes along with other symptoms like pain, fatigue, weight loss, fever, bloating, weakness, dizziness, or appetite loss. One unusual bowel movement usually does not mean disaster, but a pattern is different. A persistent change is your body asking you not to ignore it. Let's start with color signals. Inidonam, seethen 1 is pale, clay-colored or gray stool. Normally, stool is some shade of brown. That brown color comes largely from bile pigments. Bile is made by the liver, stored in the gallbladder, and released into the digestive tract to help break down fats. When bile is not reaching the intestines the way it should, stool can lose that normal brown color and start looking pale, chalky, clay-colored, or washed out. That can happen if there is a problem with bile flow. For example, gallstones can block the bile ducts. Inflammation can interfere with drainage. In some cases, liver disease or blockage of the bile system can also do it. Occasionally, certain medications can contribute to this kind of change as well. Now, one light-colored stool one time may not mean much, especially if you ate very little, if you were sick, or if something temporarily changed your digestion. But if your stool keeps looking pale or gray, especially if you also notice yellowing of the skin or eyes, dark urine, itching, nausea, or upper abdominal discomfort, then this is something you want checked promptly. Stool is supposed to be brown. If the color keeps disappearing, the question is why. Inidonam bitumen is black, sticky, tar-like stool. And I want to be very specific here because there is a difference between dark stool and true terry stool. True terry stool is often jet black, shiny, sticky, foul-smelling, and it may cling to the toilet bowl. That appearance can happen when blood has been digested as it travels through the upper part of the digestive system, such as the esophagus, stomach, or upper small intestine. The longer blood travels through the gut, the darker it becomes. Now here's where people get confused. Not all black stool means bleeding. Iron supplements can darken stool. Bismuth medications like Pepto-Bismol can darken stool. Foods or substances with strong black pigments can also do it. So if your stool is darker than usual after taking iron or bismuth, that may be harmless. But if it is black, sticky, tar-like, especially with a strong foul odor, and especially if you feel weak, dizzy, short of breath, lightheaded, or unusually tired, that is a different conversation. And there's another important point here. Sometimes bleeding is slow and chronic, not dramatic. You may not see a major color change every time, but over time, small blood loss can add up and contribute to iron deficiency anemia. So if you have ongoing fatigue, paleness, weakness, exercise intolerance, or feel winded more easily than usual, even without obvious visible blood, that is something worth checking with basic blood work. Sign number 3 is red stool or visible fresh blood. If stool looks red or you see fresh red blood, that usually means the bleeding is lower down, closer to the exit. The blood has not had time to be digested. This can happen with hemorrhoids, anal fissures, rectal irritation, inflammation in the lower bowel, or bleeding somewhere in the colon or rectum. But again, there can be harmless lookalikes. Beets can do it, red food coloring can do it. In some cases, large amounts of tomato-based foods may make stool look redder than usual, so context matters. If you ate something that could clearly stain the stool, that lowers the alarm. But if you are seeing true blood, and especially if it keeps happening, appears mixed into the stool, or comes with pain, cramping, weakness, or changes in bowel habits, then do not ignore it. Another clue is where you notice the blood. If it is only on the toilet paper or on the outside of the stool, it may be something more local, like hemorrhoids or a fissure. If it seems mixed into the stool or in the toilet water, that can suggest the bleeding is coming from higher up in the lower digestive tract. Either way, persistent red blood is not normal. It deserves attention. Sign number 4 is yellow, greasy, oily, or especially foul-smelling stool. This often points toward fat not being digested or absorbed properly. In medicine, that kind of fatty stool is sometimes called steatorrhea. It may look pale yellow or tan, may feel greasy, may float, may smell unusually bad, and sometimes may even leave residue behind. This can happen when the body is not breaking down fats efficiently. The pancreas produces digestive enzymes, including lipase, which helps digest fat. Bile also plays a major role in fat breakdown. If there is not enough bile getting into the intestines, or not enough pancreatic enzyme activity, then fat can stay in the stool instead of being properly absorbed. Some intestinal conditions that damage the lining, including celiac disease and other malabsorption problems, can also contribute. People sometimes assume this means they simply ate too much fat. Usually, that is not the main issue. Yes, a very heavy, greasy meal can temporarily change what comes out. But persistent oily, foul-smelling, greasy stool is more about poor digestion or poor absorption than just having one indulgent meal. If it keeps happening, especially with weight loss, bloating, nutritional deficiencies, or fatigue, you want to look deeper. Sign number 5 is stool that floats regularly. Now, floating stool by itself is not automatically a red flag. Sometimes stool floats because there is extra gas trapped inside it. That can happen after eating more fiber than usual, more fermentable carbohydrates than usual, or foods your system does not handle particularly well. In that case, the stool may float simply because fermentation produced more gas, but stool can also float because it contains too much fat. That is a different issue. If the floating stool is also greasy, pale, hard to flush, or unusually foul-smelling, then fat malabsorption becomes more likely. On the other hand, if it floats but seems otherwise pretty normal, and you recently changed your diet, then gas is probably the more likely explanation. This is also where the microbiome can come into play. Your gut bacteria help ferment fibers and other compounds that your own enzymes do not fully break down. If there is an imbalance in the microbiome, or if bacteria are fermenting food in the wrong place, such as in small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you may notice more bloating, gas, distension, and floating stool. So floating stool can be harmless, but if it becomes the new normal, especially with bloating, abdominal discomfort, greasy texture, or ongoing digestive problems, it is worth investigating. Now let's move into consistency signals, because shape and texture tell you a lot about transit time, hydration, motility, and inflammation. Sign number 6 is stool that is too hard, dry, lumpy, or difficult to pass. This tells you transit is likely too slow. The longer stool sits in the colon, the more water gets pulled out of it. That makes it drier, harder, and more compact. When that happens, bowel movements can become uncomfortable, incomplete, and sometimes painful. A lot of things can contribute to this. Low fiber intake can do it, not enough fluid can do it, lack of movement can do it because physical activity helps stimulate the bowels. Certain medications are famous for slowing things down. Thyroid issues can slow things down. Nervous system issues can slow things down, and in some people, the microbiome may also influence how well the bowels move. The problem with hard stool is not just discomfort. If you have to strain frequently, that can contribute to hemorrhoids, anal fissures, pelvic floor issues, and a constant sense that you're not fully done. In some cases, severe constipation can become more than just a nuisance. So if your stool is consistently hard, pellet-like, lumpy, difficult to pass, and you are going less often than your body should, then your system is telling you things are moving too slowly. And here's an important mindset shift. A lot of people normalize constipation because they have had it for years. They say, that's just how I am, but just because something is common does not make it optimal. If your body is chronically struggling to eliminate waste, it makes sense to ask why. Sign number 7 is stool that is too loose, mushy, or watery. This is the opposite problem. Now transit is too fast. Stool is moving through the intestines so quickly that water is not being reabsorbed properly. The result is loose stool or diarrhea. There are plenty of short-term reasons for this. A viral infection can do it, food poisoning can do it, a meal that did not agree with you can do it, stress and anxiety can do it, certain supplements, sweeteners, medications, and high doses of magnesium can do it. Sometimes it is temporary and self-limited. Your body clears the irritation and you are back to normal the next day or two. But if loose stool becomes frequent or chronic, then it may be signaling something more meaningful. Food intolerances can do this, irritable bowel syndrome can do this, inflammatory bowel disease can do this, gut infections can linger, excess thyroid activity can speed things up. Poor absorption can sometimes show up this way too. When stool is too loose on a regular basis, you're not just losing convenience, you may also be losing fluids, electrolytes, and in some cases nutrients. If it is persistent, if you see blood, if it wakes you from sleep, if it comes with fever, dehydration, severe pain, or weight loss, then that's not something to casually wait out. Now let's talk about content signals, meaning what is in the stool or on the stool. Sign number 8 is excessive mucus. A small amount of mucus can be normal. Your colon naturally produces mucus to help protect the lining and help stool move through more smoothly. So a thin, clear, barely noticeable coating is not necessarily a problem. What gets my attention is when there is a lot of mucus, when you can clearly see it, when it is thick, cloudy, slimy, or repeatedly noticeable in the toilet. That may mean the bowel is irritated or inflamed. You can see this with infections, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, and other kinds of intestinal irritation. It is especially more concerning when it shows up together with blood, pain, urgency, diarrhea, cramping, or a major change in bowel habits. Again, one off day is not the same as a pattern. If you had a brief stomach bug and saw some mucus for a day or two, that may pass. But if mucus becomes frequent, obvious, or increasingly heavy, that is not something to dismiss. Your colon may be signaling inflammation, irritation, or a disruption that needs attention. Sign number 9 is large amounts of undigested food. Now, let's be realistic. Almost everyone has occasionally seen corn, seeds, bean skins, vegetable fibers, or other bits of plant material in the stool. That alone is not shocking. Some fibers are tough. Some plant materials do not fully break down. That can be completely normal. What matters is the degree and the pattern. If you are seeing large pieces of undigested food repeatedly, or if it seems like food is moving through too fast, or if this is happening alongside bloating, diarrhea, greasy stool, fatigue, or weight loss, then that suggests something upstream may not be working as well as it should. The stomach may not be breaking food down effectively, digestive enzymes may be low, the small intestine may not be absorbing well, or the microbiome may not be helping finish the job properly. This is especially true if the stool also looks greasy or abnormal in other ways. At that point, it stops looking like I ate some corn and starts looking more like my digestion may not be keeping up. Occasional visible fiber is fine. Repeated signs of incomplete digestion are worth paying attention to. Sign number 10 is a sudden or persistent change in frequency. People always want to know what normal frequency is, and the technical range often given is anywhere from 3 times a day to 3 times a week. But let me qualify that, because that range is so broad that people sometimes use it to normalize patterns that are not ideal for them. Regular does not just mean predictable. Someone can say, "I'm regular. I only go every 3 days." Yes, that is regular in a timing sense, but that does not necessarily mean everything is working optimally. You want bowel movements that are not only reasonably frequent, but also comfortable, complete, and well-formed. If you suddenly start going far more often than usual, that can point to infection, inflammation, food intolerance, stress, excessive caffeine, certain medications, or an overactive thyroid. If you suddenly start going much less often than usual, that can point to constipation, low fiber, low fluid intake, slowed motility, medication side effects, low thyroid activity, or other issues. The key is not just the number. The key is the change relative to your usual baseline. A sudden shift in your pattern matters, especially if it sticks around. If you used to go once a day and now it's 4 times a day for 2 weeks, that matters. If you used to go daily and now you are going every 3 or 4 days and straining each time, that matters too. The bowel loves rhythm. When the rhythm changes without a clear temporary reason, it's worth listening. Rwanda Skandapendant. Now, let me give you the bigger picture, because the real value here is not obsessing over one bowel movement. The real value is learning the difference between a weird one-off and a meaningful pattern. If the change is brief, explainable, and goes away, it is often less concerning. Maybe you traveled, maybe you ate something unusual, maybe you took iron, maybe you were dehydrated, maybe you had a stomach bug. The body is resilient, and temporary changes happen. But if the change is persistent, unexplained, or getting worse, then your body may be asking for help. Pale stool, black tarry stool, visible blood, greasy stool, ongoing floating stool with symptoms, chronic constipation, chronic diarrhea, repeated mucus, large amounts of undigested food, major shifts in frequency. These are not things to panic over, but they are things to respect. There are also certain combinations that matter even more. For example, bowel changes plus weight loss, bowel changes plus fatigue, bowel changes plus weakness or dizziness, bowel changes plus persistent abdominal pain, bowel changes plus fever, bowel changes plus anemia. Once other symptoms start stacking on top, the message becomes louder. And one more thing, please do not fall into the trap of thinking that if you are functioning, then everything must be fine. A lot of people tolerate low-grade symptoms for months or years. They adapt to bloating. They adapt to constipation. They adapt to urgency. They adapt to weird stool patterns. And because they can still go to work and live life, they tell themselves it's normal. But adaptation is not the same as optimal health. Your stool is not glamorous, but it is informative. It tells you about bile flow, hydration, digestion, fat absorption, gut transit, inflammation, bleeding, and microbial balance. Few things in the body are this easy to observe without a test, and yet most people never look. So from now on, don't just flush and forget. Pay attention to color. Pay attention to consistency. Pay attention to what's in it. Pay attention to frequency. And most importantly, pay attention to changes. Your body often whispers before it screams. The sooner you notice the whisper, the better your chance of dealing with the problem early. The rule of thumb is simple. If the change is sudden, persistent, unexplained, or comes with other symptoms, get it checked. If it is severe, dramatic, or involves black tarry stool, significant blood, dehydration, faintness, or intense pain, do not wait around hoping it fixes itself. Listen to what your body